The Good Vibrations podcast is made possible by sponsorship from the Phoenix Light Foundation. Visit thephoenixlightfoundation.co.nz for more information.
Hello and welcome to Good Vibrations here in New Zealand. I'm Phyllis Brown, I'm your host for this show, and I'm so excited to be bringing this beautiful show where we're going to be inspiring, motivating, developing all parts of your awareness, because that's my key job. That's what I love to do. I love to inspire people into any and every aspect of their life. So this is a new concept for me, and this is a rebirth of my radio show, which I used to have, and where we had lots of a variety of guests bringing forward just their stories and just their thoughts on different episodes in their life or cycles in their life. So I thought I would start with a cycle that I certainly have gone through, and it's I call it the 7-year itch or the 7-year cycle. And I think we're all really aware of the 7-year itch. We're all aware of that, pertaining more to relationships with people, relationships in terms of marriage, etc., where we get that itchy feet process where we want to move on or we want to have a change. But I suppose for me, this 7-year cycle, I've really seen it on a much more in-depth and in a more personal experience, because I look at things on that bigger picture. And so for me, it's connected to the 7 cycles of the body, the 7 chakras. And each chakra has its own place in our body, it has its own function. And as I look back on the last 7 years, I can really see that, yes, my foundation was rocked. My base centre was absolutely shattered when we here in New Zealand and in Christchurch, we experienced both the September quakes in 2010 and then the February quakes in 2011. And I think from that point in time, with that aspect of that base centre being blown apart, everything that was normal is now no longer normal. We then had to cycle through and find our personal power and the sacral centre. We had to find our self-esteem, our courage, our confidence in the solar plexus. We had to come back to our heart. Year 4, I had to come back to our heart. Well, what is our passion and what am I actually doing? I had to come then into our throat, and did we find our throat? Are we speaking our truth? Are we living our truth? Are we walking our talk, as we say? And then we come up to the third eye, and we're seeing or imagining where we're going to be going. And then that 7th chakra, which is our crown center, and that's how we develop ourselves. How are we developing who we are as people? Are we listening to that advice? Are we actually following that advice? I think for myself and many people, not just us here in Christchurch, New Zealand, but for people who go through catastrophic events in which overnight their world is really changed, the 7-year cycle, it's not really a 7-year itch, but this 7-year cycle, it really does bring about the function of our body and our survival processes, and that we do actually have the tools. We've got these really intrinsic tools within our bodies. We've got that inner knowing. We've got those tools that we can really dig deep and find that can get us through our experiences, can get us into the next phase. I know for myself, I think more on the base centre and maybe the sacral centre to really get through the quakes. I always remember describing myself as I had to become someone that I really didn't like, who I had to become. And what I mean by that is, when you're struggling with bureaucracy and red tape and being forced into situations that are just beyond your control on some level. So in dealing with government and dealing with insurances and dealing with landlords and dealing with everything else, I really became somebody I didn't like. But I had to become that person. I had to really step out of my comfort zone and become that person, that shouty person, because I'm not really a shouty person. But my voice had to be heard, and I had to get my point across, and I had to stand my ground. That could actually just be the Leo in me, because I am a Leo, and we do roar. But I think when we are left with catastrophic events, those life-changing events where you go to bed at night and you wake up in the morning and everything has changed, you have to find your inner why. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? What is this all about? And I can really see what my crown center is showing me, where I keep having flashbacks to those times, and I have flashbacks to the feelings or the thoughts or the events of that time. And as I flash back, or as I recall and remember, I really see how far I've come. And I think sometimes when we are forced into changes in our life and we're so busy at the coalface and we're digging our way, trying to get to somewhere positive or trying to get to somewhere where we can find inspiration, we actually forget who we have become because of the journey. We forget who we were at the start of the journey. And I think that's where I am right now. I think for me, I'm at that real reflective phase of looking back and going, wow, what an experience. I've built a brand new academy. I've got online students over the world. I've got teachers now teaching my products. I've got my products recognised by a governing body. I've still got my client base. It's just incredible. It's incredible what has occurred in that time. And that wasn't really what I set out to achieve in the beginning. It was just purely survival mode. And I feel that this 7-year itch is in relationships. If you're in that relationship mode and suddenly you're looking at who you're with, but who you've become because of that relationship, I think that's what happens with us. We get to that stage where it's just like, oh, I've maybe outgrown this place or this person or this company or this career, this job. We go through this cycle and we're cycling into new beginnings and looking for new challenges or looking for something else that will give us that feelings of that life's worth living, or that feeling of inspiration or feeling inspired to get up each day. I think for me, with this 7-year reflection, I've had this huge health process as well, and that brought up a lot of insecurities, if you like, or fears, and even that sort of life-death reflection process of being in hospital and literally just feeling my life just sort of ebbing away. That is a very poignant point. And at that point, I would have been on the throat center chakra. If I was to think back, it was 2.5 years ago. And I would have been working through my throat center, finding my voice. Am I speaking my truth? Was I walking my talk? And as I sit here and just even reflect on that, I have this really clear memory of going, well, actually, no, I'm not ready to go. I still have something to do. And I just felt myself sort of coming back into my physical being, feeling really connected to myself physically and having an awareness that I've come back, and I've come back for a reason. I've come back not just to reside in an existence, but I've come back to create change, and I've come back to create something better. And in that 2.5 years, the evolution of the Phoenix Light Academy, or the evolution of my work and the way that I see my clients, changing my work, creating the healing element in every single session that I have with my clients, rather than it just being readings. I can really see that the impact that has on people. They may not necessarily know why they're coming to see me, but by the time they leave, they go, well, that wasn't what I expected, but I'm glad I've come. And I suppose the other aspect of this 7 years cycle is the 7 planes of existence. Now, the 7 planes of existence is a theta principle or a theta technique, and it's one of those things that I think if you're not a theta person, you may not understand this, but the 7 planes of existence are really the 7 levels of consciousness here on our universe or in our universe. And this is according to Vianna Stibel, who brought forward the whole theta healing technique. So when I think back to the quake period, which is the first plane of existence, is that rock and that mineral, and it so relates to just the earth moving and our world being rocked and the buildings falling down, and just, what is important: fire, water, food and shelter, the very basics of life. And so that was 2011 for us as a family, for us within our careers and within our businesses. So I can really relate to that over the last 7 years. The second plane of existence is connected to the plant kingdom. And I think for me, we moved to a home from a mountainside, actually, to a home with a rose farm. We were right amongst the plants. We would walk around the racetrack, all the roses, hundreds and thousands of roses in blossom and bloom. Every day we would feast our eyes, coming to terms with the shell shock of this massive change, but having the most amazing way of being soothed and healed, and the house filled with roses, the house surrounded by roses, that elemental energy. And then we have the animal kingdom, the third plane, and this beautiful quakey cat, this cat that was sadly and badly affected by the quakes here in Christchurch, just turned up in the garden. And he came into our home, followed by another cat. And so we were connected to this amazing animal kingdom. And they came and we healed them as they healed us. And beautiful Stealth, the quakey cat, he took solace, and he passed away after 4 months in amongst the roses, actually. And it was such a beautiful place for him to go, that place of peace and quietness and beauty, to just go and curl up and pass away in amongst that. Amazing. The fourth plane of existence is where our guides are. It's where we talk to our ancestors, and we're talking to our loved ones that's passed over. And I know for myself, what the quakes brought up for me is not having that father figure. My father died when I was 4, and man, I needed a father. I so wanted to have my father there, just to give me a hug and just to be there, that strong masculine energy we think of our fathers as, that person, the go-to person. So I certainly looked at my lawyer, and I looked at my accountants, and they all said, no, you've got to do it yourself, Phil. You've got to do it yourself. So I have to say, I did call on my father's energy a lot there, and I did a lot of healing actually on my grief process with his loss. We come up to the fifth plane of existence, our angels, our ascended masters, those higher energies, those places where we can get that little bit of clarity. When we go up and connect with the angels, they're taking our prayers to God, to heaven, to the universe, to the source, whatever it is that you believe. And who better to get your message out there than to call upon the angels? And I love my angels. I've been an angel teacher with the Diana Cooper School for over, it must be 15 years now. And I teach an angel course. I just love angels. I get a great sense of peace with the angels. And then the sixth plane of existence is the laws. The law of attraction, magnetism, the law of power, the law of success, the law of futility. The virtues are also in there, to be virtuous. And that comes into my Buddhist belief system. To be virtuous is to have the highest intent and the highest aspect of patience or tolerance or kindness or forgiveness. To have these virtues in your conscious awareness is a really key process so that you can be coming at things with that higher perspective, seeing the bigger picture and not getting attached to the drama that goes around you. The laws are very exacting though. So if you were to apply the law of magnetism, especially to the law of manifestation, just think about what you're thinking of at that point in time. Otherwise, whatever you're thinking of, you'll manifest in. So if you're manifesting a thought of, oh, I hope I don't catch the cold, then absolutely you will. So, beware of the laws. They're very powerful. And then the seventh plane of existence, the creator of all that is, the ultimate source. That place where we can just go and sit and be at peace with ourselves. That place where we get supreme guidance. And that's your crown center. We were to relay all of these planes of existence back to the chakras, then we can see how it all intermingles and we can see how we can support ourselves through these deeper understandings and just being open to what's going on around us. I think for me, the key thing to remember is that you are who you are. Life is what you make it. It's not that life makes you per se, but life is what you make it. And it's the life in your years, really, whether you have a short level of years or a long lifetime ahead of you. It's what you've done in those years. What have you accomplished in those years? So that's my thoughts for our first inaugural show, the 7-year cycle. And I think for me, it's maybe something for you to think about. Where have you been over the last 7 years? I've got Nathan in the studio with me today, and he is our producer, and he's been nodding away whilst I've been talking here. So I see you've got some notes there. What are your thoughts?
I do. A couple of questions, and I don't know if you'll have the answer for this, but
I'll try.
When you spoke about the cycle and sort of understanding where you were, and is it something that you're aware is happening at the time, or is it more of a, in hindsight, I've recognized this cycle, or does it change situationally?
I think for me, this year in particular, it's been the hindsight thing. I think more because those memories of the quake, as you know, I've been walking around going, I keep getting these, I keep seeing myself in Yaltown Road, I keep seeing myself just after the quakes, and it's taken me time just to sit back and think about, well, why are those memories popping up? And then that's put me into that reflective phase of, okay, so who was I back then? What was happening in my life? And as you know, I was part of CTV and all those beautiful people passed away. 17 people passed away in one fell swoop that it's not often that of a mass passing like that. And I know it really didn't hit me until about 4 years after when I was invited back onto CTV. And I think it was really, you've just pointed out, it was that fourth plane and reconnecting to those souls that had passed. And certainly Andrew, the producer, you could feel him in the studio with Andrea and I. So I think for me, it's a reflective thing. I think you do put your head down and you work your way through things. You get into a routine and you're powering through all of your challenges. And then suddenly you go, wow, what's that thought about? Why am I getting that thought? Then that's your reflective time.
Is there anything that our listeners can do to be more aware of the cycle, maybe as it's happening?
Yes, I think for me it's about, if they were to think about an event, so if they were to think about an event that was maybe 2 years ago, so are they coming back to their confidence? Are they finding their feet? Are they beginning to be a bit more confident about where they're going? So if they've had, let's say, a breakup from a marriage, let's say, so yes, absolutely, they'll be running on their base center, that first chakra. Where am I going to live? How am I going to support myself? How am I going to survive? And then they'll be finding their part. Okay, so I've dealt with all of that. So I need a new career. I need new friends. I need a new partner. So, if they're in that third year reflecting back, am I feeling confident? What have I been doing? So maybe for the listener, if they could think about the last major event in their life and then think about the 7 chakras, and we'll put a poster on the Instagram just to show some information, then I think they can maybe start seeing where they're going. Yeah.
And if people do recognize this cycle, is there anything that they can do, not so much to influence it, but to guide them through it?
I think if they recognize the cycle, then first of all, they need to congratulate themselves for coming over that first 3 chakras, or that first 3 years where it's all about basic instinct. Then if they're coming into their heart space, being true to themselves, speaking their truth, really congratulate themselves from coming through a really difficult phase and finding the tools to get them through that phase, celebrating who they are now, and knowing that regardless of what the next 7-year cycle is going to be, they're far better prepared. They're far better prepared, yeah. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that. As I say, we'll put some information on Instagram and possibly on the Phyllis Brown Facebook page. We'll put some charts on there, just some information about the 7 chakras and the 7 planes. You can buy the book by Vianna Stibel. It's actually called The 7 Planes of Existence. It takes you through every single existence that's there. I'll snapshot a picture, put it onto Instagram. It'll be the easiest way for you to find it. And there's the virtues are in there as well. So hopefully food for thought, tools for you to use, and maybe time for you to reflect. I'm looking forward to our next show. We're going to have Sharon Woodings on our next show, and that will be the 17th of August. And Sharon is the most inspirational woman I've discovered in a long, long time. She really sets me on fire. We talk for hours. I just love her energy. You'll figure that out when she's actually talking live in the studio. And she's going to talk about personal empowerment and strength, and this beautiful tool that she takes you through, which is called Strength Finder. An amazing tool, just done it myself, as has Nathan. Discovered so much about myself. So yeah, exciting show for next week. Empowerment and Strength with Sharon Woodings. So thank you for joining us here at Good Vibrations NZ with me, Phyllis Brown. You can get me on Instagram and Facebook, that is Phyllis Brown NZ. You can also catch up on all that's happening with my courses, my online classes, etc. on phyllisbrown.co.nz. And remember to subscribe to the podcast show and share the subscription with your friends so you can get each show as it rolls out of the studio, hot off the press as we speak. And we'll see you the next time. Take care for now.
This podcast was brought to you by the Phoenix Light Foundation. For personal development courses, visit thephoenixlightfoundation.co.nz and use the code PHOENIX50 for 50% off all courses.